This board meeting segment takes place the next month. The board is discussing the focus of the evaluation with the superintendent. At this meeting, the superintendent's performance may be discussed when they are selecting the indicators to use, so this meeting is in closed session. This scene provides a good example of the cooperative discussion between the board and superintendent to select the indicators. Further, they each identified specific reasons based on data to support the indicators selected and related them to objectives in their CSIP. Let's listen in again.
Okay, our purpose tonight is to agree on the indicators we want to use for the superintendent evaluation. So let's look at the evaluation tool. You may want to have your copy of the CSIP ready.
I recommend we look at indicator 2.2. It ties into our CSIP number 1.3 to lower that achievement gap among students on free and reduced lunch. According to the report we got a couple months ago, it said that these students are 30% less likely to score at or above grade level in reading, and everyone knows how important reading is.
I think this choice is a no-brainer. We just have to address the problem.
Okay, we picked 2.2. Now what?
Well, we take Form A1, the superintendent evaluation tool, and put a check mark by 2.2. Then we pick other indicators to give this form to the superintendent to complete. He brings it back to us with the CSIP objectives referenced and some information to help us determine the baseline performance, or the starting point. I suggest we pick another indicator.
We should consider Standard 6. It has a lot to do with board communication. Sometimes I feel that we're not fully updated on academics. We spend a lot of time talking about construction and personnel, and we don't talk about student performance very often.
How about indicator 6.2? It's about responding. It says, respond to the larger context. I think that's about communicating about these types of things.
Does it relate to our CSIP?
Yes, in objective 4.2 on our CSIP, it says we want to work more often as a team to improve student achievement, and I think teams need to have good communication.
Dr. Sherrington, so I'm guessing that you have some ideas as well?
I know you want to focus on closing our achievement gap between our free and reduced lunch students and the rest of our students, and I agree this is a good area of focus. I've actually identified some of the things that we have already done and some of the things I plan to do to help our efforts in this area. You can use that information when looking at Standard 2.2 and how you think I've done so far. I also have no trouble with including the communication indicator. Personally, I think that one is strong already. However, I would like to focus my efforts on our community outreach program. You had mentioned this during my evaluation in February, and here is some of the information I had put together on this regarding my personal evaluation.
This scene provides a good example of the cooperative discussion between the board and superintendent to select the indicators. Further, they each identified specific reasons based on data to support the indicators selected and related them to objectives in their CSIP. Let's listen in again.
Before we go any further with this form, I want Michael to explain one other aspect of this process.
Well, since we last met, I've had a chance to look more deeply at the model superintendent evaluation. According to the State Department's recommendations, first we need to determine Dr. Sherrington's current level of performance. They call it a baseline performance, so we have a starting point to measure against. The growth guides can help us do that. Let's look at the growth guide for indicator 2.2. Included is something called professional frames. I see these frames as a way of looking at something in 3 stages. The first stage, or frame, is commitment. Growth Guide 2.2 labels it evidence of commitment. The superintendent must demonstrate a clear commitment to whatever the indicator is. For example, having a district plan for providing effective instruction demonstrates commitment. The second frame, or evidence of practice, is accomplished when the superintendent puts this commitment into practice, such as using specific strategies, and the final stage is assessing what impact or results those practices have had. They call that evidence of impact.
Well, Michael, how does that affect our evaluation?
Colleen, the State Department recommends that at least 2 of the indicators we select should focus on impact more than commitment. We want to examine and evaluate the actual result the strategies have on improving performance of our students on free and reduced lunch.
I can see that. We all have the best intent, but the real question is whether we turn those intents into action that makes a difference.
If you look at the Superintendent Growth Guide for 2.2, it breaks down the evidence in each of the frames by whether it is evidence of commitment, practice, or impact. Ideally, we are looking for evidence of all 3, although evidence of impact or results implies commitment and practice were met. When we meet next time, we'll consider the information Dr. Sherrington provides and determine where we think his performance is at this time. The starting point is called baseline performance.
As stated earlier, the board and superintendent may decide to base the evaluation on 3 quality indicators. For demonstration purposes in this vignette, we will only focus on indicator 2.2. At the next meeting, we'll hear the board's discussion for determining the baseline or starting point for the superintendent's current level of performance.